Hi, Dave.
Hi, Sandy.
How are you?
What are we talking about today?
We are going to talk about the importance of why every coach needs their own coach. Coaches need a coach, 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 coach. Get it, coach. Get it, coach.
That's
Yeah? No?
awesome.
Okay.
I totally agree with you.
It's like, should I do that? Do you want to start over? No, we're
No, that was
Taylor
awesome.
Swift for you there. All right.
Yes, very Taylor Swifty.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about coaches being coached themselves. Um, So when we talk about that, like, do we mean like continuing education or what?
Yeah, it seems like coach development's sort of like and sort of unlike traditional educational learning of anything, of a skill or whatever. Um, yeah, there seems to be three different kinds of coaching that coaches can get. There's just straight up coaching, which is just when the coach is a client and they can kind of go through their own issues. Um, then there's mentor coaching, which is more of like a teaching role, maybe, that focus on skills and techniques of coaching and improving that. And then coach supervision, which seems to be a blend of kind of the last two that I mentioned.
Yeah, a blend of the mentor coaching and straight up like coaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, so since coach supervision is a blend of the first two, for the purposes of this recording, we're going to focus on those first two, straight up mentor coaching and then straight up coaching for coaches as well. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start with mentor coaching, the teaching advising part of that.
Teaching, advising. Yeah. Okay. So before we get started, I just want to pick this little bone and I want to be very clear. Mentor coaching is a paid gig. It's not a volunteer thing. And I'm bringing this up because I had a student come to me thinking, and maybe other people think this too. So maybe it's good to mention, but I had the student come to me thinking that mentor coaching was maybe like in a corporate situation, like an executive taking a junior executive under their wing, kind of mentoring or something for free. And no, this is not like big brothers, big sisters. Mentor coaching is a paid thing. Okay, I feel better. So,
I'm glad you
so
feel
yeah,
better.
yeah, I feel better. I feel better getting it off my chest.
Well,
So
that's
when
so
I,
true
yeah, go
because
ahead.
we're all out here trying to make good use of our time, and unfortunately, that's the only occupation that we have. So, if we take up time doing other things, we have to be mindful of that. But yeah, we may need to well, maybe rightfully should be paid for helping people out in this context anyway.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know some people they have spots on their client roster for maybe one or two pro bono clients, which is, that's a thing too. But in general, mentor coaches are paid. So with that said, when I think of mentor coaching, I think of working with someone who helps me develop good habits and also helps me get rid of bad habits in those coaching conversations. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking of bad habits because I'm going to the negative right away. And I'm thinking about a bad habit I had that actually was creeping up today in a session earlier, I noticed. But I was having a session reviewed by a mentor coach, and she said, "You're saying uh-huh a lot." And I listened back to my session. It's like, mm-hmm, uh-huh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God, it's really distracting. And it's interrupting the client, and it's not necessary. So that was eye-opening. And I don't think I would have gotten there without a mentor coach. Do you have any bad habits come to mind that a mentor coach has helped you with, Dave?
Oh, the list is too big to present on a public podcast. Oh my god.
Oh
No,
God.
seriously. Yeah, yeah. There are tons of bad habits. I think they would probably range from the small to kind of the more larger kind of skill based things. Um,
Like,
yeah.
what do you mean by skill-based bad habit? Like, what would that be?
One would be something like getting over that urge to teach someone, right, and helping them.
And
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It's like, or I know best, or because I went through it, but on my own, right? I think my answer is their answer. And by the way, everybody else's answer, damn it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, listen to me. Case in point, people.
yeah. Yeah. And it took a while to get rid of that or to manage it and change it to something more positive and usable for coaches, for a client. And I actually saw the nice thing about all this is that you do this kind of work and then you see the positive results in clients, right? You see that they respond more, they actually take whatever is discussed and actually run with it. I mean, there's so many good things that you see happen when that happens. It kind of proves that the coaching skills that they are teaching are actually worthwhile to learn, and they're actually pretty good. So yeah, I have to think, but there were a ton of things over the years that I still work on a lot of them too.
Yeah, and you're mentioning how the client opens up once you get rid of those bad habits. I'm thinking about my habit of and once I stopped doing that, it's like the client, I could sense the client relax. I could sense, you talk about trust, safety, rapport. I mean, that just went like exploded because they weren't being interrupted and they didn't feel like they had to finish their sentence before I would be like,
They
There's a
needed
lot
your
to be said.
yeah.
Oh, God, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. So
Yeah.
what else? We have bad habits. What about good habits or learning new skills?
Well, let's see. One big one for me was really accessing intuition, for example, and to have comfort, but also to open up enough whatever inside me to actually access and notice that something was happening. So for me, that was a really huge new skill, and I'm finding intense value from having developed that, and I still continue to do work in that area.
Yeah, that's a good point. Intuition is not, well, in our course training, it's not something that was really talked about. I think we both discovered it afterwards at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's something to be said. That's a skill that you want to have. That's a skill you want to have. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, you bring up a good point, which is we trust the whatever course we went through to teach us what we thought would be, I don't know, everything we needed to know. And then when you get out in the real world, the world's a lot bigger than any course is, and
Yeah.
then
How
you
about
realize that there's a ton of new things that you could be learning that could enhance your coaching, as long as it resonates with you, right? It's like maybe the intuition thing isn't your thing, or you'd rather go down another route, whether it's an esoteric method or it's a evidence-based traditional method, right? There's just so many ways to take your coaching and take it further, and hopefully in an area that interests you, versus thinking that you learned everything all there is to know about coaching after a year-long course or whatever it is.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. There's so much room for improvement and learning those new skills. And one skill you mentioned was deeper listening, which to me kind of goes along with intuition, maybe. What do you think?
Yeah, listening could be definitely intuition. Right. What are you trying to pick out that wasn't really said, maybe that, or was being said in a different way? Yeah, like through the body or through the energy. Whether there's a hand wave or a nervousness right in the body. I mean, all these are messages that are being spoken to you, but not necessarily through the voice, right? And that's when, it's nice to be in Zoom when we can see the person, but then if it's phone only, then you'll have to pick up on what else can be heard, right? So, which is also kind of cool too, to notice inflections and change in energy. Are they pausing, right? What mood is coming out of it? So, yeah, there's a lot of that. And then you got the precursor to that, which is just being able to listen at all.
Right.
Yeah, because some of us are already throwing our own biases and interpretations and everything on top of what other people say, and that pretty much colors everything. And you may not actually see what's truly being, what's truly, yeah, truly being expressed to you, but rather it's distorted maybe, or biased for sure, colored, all sorts of different modifications of what actually is coming to you.
Right. I know when I was in the course and was learning active listening, listens actively, and this was a habit that I had before coaching. So isn't that interesting? We bring our habits into our coaching conversations, but I would listen to a couple words and then I'd start formulating my response and miss half of what the client said, which is not in service to the client. So for me, deeper listening was like just listening and like trusting, intuition maybe coming up here, trusting that when they're done speaking, something halfway eloquent will exit my mouth and land well for the client or not. They'll let you know. But I see this when I review practical skills assessment sessions, and you can see the wheels turning in the coach's head, like, oh, they stopped listening. Yeah, listening is huge.
Yeah, how was that journey for you? Because that was something I definitely fought with as well. How did you get over that? The gears turning while they're talking.
Actually, it's interesting because I was going through therapy at the same time. And so this was a topic that came up in my therapy sessions as well. So I feel like I was getting it from two different perspectives. And it really made me aware of how I'm listening or not. And it was just practice. I mean, everything boils down to practice, right? So it was just practice and listening back to sessions, which I started doing again because I'm looking for recording for my next certification. But that is so important to listen back to your recordings. You hear those bad habits, or you have someone point them out to you. And you also hear what you missed. It's when a client's talking and you hear that back, you're like, oh, she just said this amazing thing and I totally missed it. So it was partially embarrassment that got me to a point of listening deeper because I felt so embarrassed I missed some of these things with my clients. I felt bad, guilt maybe. There's a little guilt and shame. Maybe I need some coaching.
Mentor coaching.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of embarrassment, and maybe bringing it back to the fact that we're talking about mentor coaching here, right, to have someone who's an expert at picking these out of students like us and then mentioning it to us, man, it's sometimes so painful to be, right? We'll get into what a mentor coaching session can often look like, but they're often giving you feedback as a bunch of us are trying to coach. Then you go like, oh man, I totally missed that. Or
were you talking about like in a group coaching?
Yeah, for example, yeah.
Group mentor coaching, right.
Yeah.
Yes. That'll set you straight, being embarrassed in front of your peers.
Oh yeah. That's another thing we got to get over to.
I know. But it's good. It's all good. Learning is good. Yeah, so what else can you learn from a mentor coach? What else is coming up for you?
Yeah, different possibilities we've talked about, different new skills, often just a different way of explaining it. Because I find that maybe a teacher didn't resonate with you, or maybe the lecture didn't resonate with you if it was the class that you're taking. And then if you have another person explain it to you, and you go, oh, that's what that was. Yeah, so therein lies the importance of the style or the way that a particular mentor coach might teach, and seeing if their language, their style, their resonance, with you, right? Does it match with how you learn, right? And we'll get probably more into selection and stuff, but that's pretty important that you can actually accept feedback from this particular person and learn from them.
Right, and having that trust and safety and rapport with someone you have chemistry with. And yeah, we'll talk more a little bit later about how to find a mentor coach and also our own experiences with mentor coaches. It's all good. It's all good, right? It's all
Yeah,
good.
we'll get there.
We'll get there. We'll get there. It's a journey. Enjoy the journey.
That's right.
So what else is important about working with a mentor coach? Did we miss anything here?
I think we're pretty good. But let's move on to talking about having a coach for personal development and why that's important for a coach to do.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is that going into problem solving mode, and having that writing reflex to want to tell the client what to do. This is a bad habit, yes, but it probably stems from you not taking care of your own stuff. Like, help yourself first. You know, they always say put your oxygen mask on first before helping someone else. And it's like, yeah, what's that about? Like, you're wanting to help someone that you're not willing to let them find their own answers. And coaching can help with that. For sure. For sure.
Yeah, from definitely when we both experienced, for sure.
Wow.
But maybe for the benefit of our listeners, can you talk more about what our own stuff really means, and then how that may manifest itself in blocking you to being an effective coach?
Yeah, well, emotions come to mind for me straight away. I love working with emotions with my clients. And not that you have to be a master of your emotions, but I believe you should have a general idea of what you're thinking, feeling, sensing when emotions come up for you. So then you can recognize that if you're having an emotion in a coaching conversation, if someone says something, does something that triggers you and causes you to get a little angry or maybe start crying, which there's nothing wrong with crying, getting angry, but if it starts interfering with your coaching process, that's probably not good. So that's what's coming forward for me on that, just off the top of my head. What about you?
Yeah, for sure. The emotions that come up, depending on what happens and how you manage it, it can totally block a session. Well, let's talk about the negatives first. It could potentially limit the type of clients you might be able to handle. For example, if you encountered someone who had experienced a trauma that you had also experienced, whether either knowingly or non-knowingly on your side, then you might have a welling up of emotion or stoppage, blocking barriers, whatever, that could stop you in your tracks in terms of being able to continue the conversation with the client. That's not to say that you couldn't coach at all or whatever, but it could mean that you may at that point need to say, hey man, I don't think I can continue here. Right? It's like, I need to stop the session. I'm really sorry. And, go through that kind of closure. So then on the flip side, it would mean that, well, if you took care of some of these issues that you might have experienced in your past, that could also widen and expand the amount of clients you could handle. And then make you, not only do you take care of yourself and go through your own healing, then potentially you could take on a wider variety of clients with a broader set of issues, and be able to navigate that and get through to successful conclusions with them.
Yeah, I'm thinking about another example is coming to mind. And you know of my challenges with my father over the past few years, and I had a lot of coaching around that topic. And thank goodness, because since that time, 2 clients have come to me with similar issues about their father. And I know if I had not taken care of my side of the table, I don't think I would have been able to be present for my client. But it's so interesting, like this one, and it was pretty recent, client brought brought up something about her father, and I was able to be with her and not be in my head about my own story. And yeah, coaching helped completely help me work through that.
Yeah, and then you became a stronger coach
I think
because of
so.
it.
I think
Yeah.
so, absolutely. And I was like, during the session, I was like patting myself on the back. I'm like, good job, Swanson, for not getting in your story. Wait, I just missed what the client said. No.
Good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah, yeah. But what else when it comes to like having a coach for personal development? What else comes to mind for you?
Yeah, besides emotions that come up and past things that happen in your life that could be blocking you, there are other things that comes to mind. Like we've talked already about problem solving mode. The just you just can't resist putting out the answer because you know the answer, right? And we always have this arrogance about ourselves that we know everything because we're all there is in the world. Damn it! And so my answer is your answer, right? And
Right, and I'm gonna interrupt you and say I love that, like that word arrogance, because we're not talking about sharing information. We're not talking about, oh, may I offer something? I heard this blog or podcast. We're not talking about that. We're talking about solving a client's problems, like why they don't have confidence, why they don't feel worthy. It's like we don't know why. It's not ours to solve. It's theirs to solve. But like leaving that arrogance at the door. I love that word arrogance in this context. Yeah, super important.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Totally interrupted.
Oh no, it's okay. And along with that, then is there's some urge in a lot of people to help, right? There's sometimes we give up even help, taking care of ourselves to help other people, but there's something within us that we just, I have the answer to your health problem or whatever, and therefore all you have to do is this. And I don't want to spread the word that if you did all this stuff and I don't know, bought this supplement or whatever, then you too will be as awesome as I did, or I heal as much as I did.
Right.
And there's something about that that makes people want to also use information again to thinking that that will solve the problem. Now, then that kind of leads to we're a very information heavy society that if we just know everything, if we Google everything, and we can now, Dr. Google knows everything and kind of give us 50,000 ways of thinking about anything and only the ways that we believe too. And no matter what our viewpoint is. And that all we have to do is know the answer and that will actually solve the problem or get us to the problem. The reality is, well, humans are a lot more wackier than that. And that even if you read every single book, which I've met many people have read a lot about habits and all sorts of whatever, about this and that. It's like, why haven't you gotten there yet? You've read every single book out there. So there's something else afoot that we need to figure out.
For sure.
Um,
That's where a coach comes in.
yeah, for sure. Then that kind of leads to kind of bad coaching behaviors. Like we like to talk about coach agenda, right? Like, what do we want you to do? And we start leading you and putting our words into yours, and then potentially the client may have been, I don't know, subtly coerced. Maybe they might not even know it. That maybe one way could be better than others, or one that was not generated by themselves. And so then those can lead to other problems. Yeah.
So is this something that would be better for a mentor coach, do you think? This habit of having your own agenda sounds like a bad habit.
Yeah, totally. Because it's probably some of the other things we talked about are wrapped in there, right? Thinking that you know what's best. You want to be the expert here because you think you're awesome, right? You building up your own ego, right? For
Right. Oh,
knowing
there you go.
things,
There you go.
all those
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
things.
So so I'm thinking coaching, maybe not getting coaching, not from a mentor coach, air quotes for those of you listening, mentor coach, but just a regular coach to get out of that egotistical headspace where you think you're right. Got some work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what that's how doctors operate. That's how even therapists, right? Clinically trained people, right? It's sort of the expert patient relationship, whereas coaches are coaches and clients, right? So it's a little bit different relationship that the expert knows all and will tell you exactly what to do. And your job is to just listen to them because they're their expert. So how could that be wrong? So it's different for coaching.
Yeah, and I've seen this in sessions from students as well, people who are, trained in another field, RNs or yoga instructors, for example. And it's like it's a personality shift almost to shift away from that. And yeah, coaching super helpful
Mm-hmm.
in making that shift away from teaching. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And maybe one more thing tossing out there is this concept of time and patience.
Mm.
And that can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. A small one is I'm on the clock, right? And especially in the work that I do with Modern Health, they're always 30 minutes. So as time approaches 30 minutes, there wells up this kind of insecurity in yourself like, oh man, am I delivering something within the time? Are they going to feel bad about me? Oh my God, if they feel bad about me, then all hell will break loose. I will feel bad about me and the world's going to collapse. So, yeah, potentially that can cause a lot of issues, right? Racing to the end of the clock and trying to get something done. And then time can also manifest itself in terms of how you feel about the client, right? It's like, you got to do this now. It's like, well, no, they don't really have to do it now. They're going to do it on their own time. So realizing that and being okay with that, and also fostering patience in the client themselves, right? It's like, well, I know you want this tomorrow, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen, is it? and then also, letting them move on whatever time frame they need to move on, and being okay with that.
Right. Right. So the patience, like when a coach is patient, that kind of rubs off on the client, it sounds like.
Yeah,
What do
for
you think?
sure. And
Yeah.
if you don't personally have patience, then that's where a coach needs to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why aren't you patient? What's behind that
Mm-hmm.
rush to get somewhere? Yeah.
Right, right. So what else is important about coaches working with a coach for personal development here? Do we miss anything?
No, I think we got it pretty well covered there.
All right. So, yeah, moving on. So, what are some signs that a coach would benefit from having their own coach? Like, if you are a coach and you don't have a coach right now, maybe there's some signs coming forward that you should get a coach. So, what are some of those?
Yeah, I think we've talked about a lot of those already. You talked about emotions arising.
Yes, emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't take care of your own side of the table, it will prevent you from responding in a coach-like way for sure.
Yeah. And that's where potentially then the coach needs to develop some self awareness too,
Mhm.
that, hey, something's welling up, or versus not being aware. And then you're like, the session's going off kilter, but you don't really know what to do about it because you're not aware of it, right? To stop and say,
Yeah, along
do
the same
something about it.
lines. Yeah, yeah. Along the same lines, I want to bring up the concept of energy
Mm.
and sensing energy. And since working with mentor coaches, one in particular, I've become so much more aware of my body. Actually, my therapist has helped me too in this manner, but just aware of my body and sensing energy coming from the client, coming from me, um, and getting curious, like, what is my energy doing right now? If the client says something and like goosebumps, like, and sharing that with the client, like becoming super aware of those subtler things. Um, Emotions seem a little more obvious, but yeah, if you're sitting there and just like flat and not connecting the dots, if you feel something but you're not like brushing it off, like get some coaching around that. That's important information, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. You could even, a good mentor coach would also ask you like, well, what's blocking you from sensing
Right.
what the client's causing in you?
Right.
Yeah. Why does it feel so numb, right? Blank, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Uh, Another good one is like we talked about, just can't break out of teaching mode. It's
Yeah.
like as soon as they say, we get to the agenda, they say, "Oh, I want this out of it," and all of a sudden, boom, you're starting to recite those books that you've read, and it's like, "Oh, why don't you try this, 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 this?" So that would be an obvious one.
It's interesting when I would do that, because I did when I first started coaching, because I didn't really understand what coaching was, but I do now, obviously. But I totally missed on some of the energetic signals my client was sending me when I was telling them what to do. And I invite all of you listening, watching, to notice this in your clients, if you, or just friends, family. Tell someone what to do, see what happens with their energy. They will probably shut down. They'll probably start, like, close down, get fidgety, like, and I think about some sessions when I was a student, and I was like, wow, yeah, she was telling me a lot. And I missed it. So yeah, good to get some coaching around that.
I love that practice suggestion. It's a great one. Just practice with anybody and everywhere. It's a great one.
I was practicing with my mom, and it's not even practicing, because I already know, like, you can't tell this woman what to do. She's a strong, independent, she's a smart woman. Don't tell her what to do. And she's gotten very good at, she's a kind woman. She's gotten very good at, like, I'm okay. And it's like, okay. Yeah. But anyway, what else?
Yeah, alongside this kind of not inability or lowered ability to kind of recognize the emotional state of you and your clients, maybe less intuition, there's often something that happens towards the end of the session, and it's usually like an emotion like a feel of discomfort to anxiety to like something about something's not going right here. It doesn't feel like the client's in a good place. I am worried that I did not deliver, right? It's like all these kind of things will go through you.
So you're talking about the coach having those
Coaches having those
experiences.
feelings.
Yeah, yeah.
As the client's kind of going like, yeah, I could do that. I could give up sugar,
No, you can't. No,
know.
you're lying. That's when you say, I don't believe you, client.
Well, that's what a coach, if they could sense everything,
Exactly.
that's just like, I'm not feeling it here. It's like, what's behind that, right? You
Yeah.
want to probe it, even if you are coming up against the end of the clock, because if you don't, they're going to go and they may not even do it afterwards
Mhm.
because you didn't call them on it.
Yeah, I've called my client out. I called the client recently on something, and she was like, I think I'll do this. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, no, I don't know. But it opened up like a whole another topic of discussion. Like, what's that about? What's that I don't know about? Maybe. And she was so ambivalent. It's like, yeah, don't believe the client, right? Don't believe the client, and getting coaching around that, around trusting, going back to intuition, trusting what you see, you hear, you sense. Super important.
Yeah, maybe that's kind of an overall thing for anyone wondering if they should get a coach or not is you go through the sessions and then see how you feel at the end. Do you feel energized? You feel like, oh, yeah, I was number one or good? And if you don't, that might be a clue on like, there could be something there that might be worth, and that would be the way you talk about it. You may not be aware of it. You just go to a mentor coach and go, I had this session with so-and-so. We kind of went through this way. And at the end, I kind of felt, or whatever. And then, of course, a good mentor coach would peel it out of you immediately. Like, what the heck happened? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Just checking in at the end of the session.
Yep.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
So you review a ton of PSA sessions these days. What are
I
you
do.
seeing? Yeah, out of those. out
Yeah,
of new students. Yeah.
it's interesting. You mentioned, that heightened stress during, before, after a session. I see that in sessions. I see that I review sessions and I meet with a student over Zoom, and there's a lot of defensiveness that comes forward, a lot of stress, a lot of desperation because they want to pass, and of course they want to pass. And there's this need and desire to explain everything that happened in the session. And so my question to those students are like, what's that about? Get some coaching. Get some coaching. This is getting in the way of you being a good coach, because they're good coaches. But there's just this underlying, like, yeah, okay, we talked about the 30-minute session. There's that time constraint. I get it. But you got to let go of something, or you got to work on something. You got to coach through something of your own before you can be there for your clients. And I coach them in those sessions a little bit. But you can only do so much in 45 minutes. So, but yeah, it's interesting.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing all that. Yeah, what else? Okay to move on?
What else? I think we can move on.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe it'd be helpful to share some of our own experiences with mentor coaches. What do you think?
Yeah. So you and I went to the same health coach training course, which is no more. It's the Cresser Institute Adapt Health Coach Training course, which was wonderful. And we had 5 mentor coaches that we could choose from. I think they did like 2 or 3 sessions each per week at different times, because it was a very international cohort. So it was like all times of day and night to accommodate all the students all over the world. And so you get a flavor of this mentor coach, maybe resonated more with one than another. But I thought it was wonderful to get this smattering of different opinions and voices and styles. And now, I mean, I've worked with 3 additional mentor coaches, and I know you've worked with at least 2. So we're talking like 7 or 8 mentor coaches each since the start of our coach training. And so, we talked about those different styles, different perspectives. But what else is good about working with more than one mentor coach, in your opinion?
There's just so many different perspectives and different ways of explaining things to you. And as I mentioned before, sometimes when one person explaining, you go, huh? Or no way, or, whatever. And then the next person will say it to you and then go like, oh, that's what that is.
It's so funny you say this, because I'm thinking about my music background, and my professor in high school was like this lovely, like, man, and he just explained everything so gently and beautifully. And then my professor in college was like, huh? Like, speak English, like, I mean, we did not work well together at all. And so similar situation, it sounds like, when finding a mentor coach or working with different mentor coaches.
Yeah, for sure. Find the one that just resonates with you. And I've also found that there's been kind of an evolution too. So some resonated with me earlier, and then I kind of moved on from them. And so as my own growth is happening, right, or your own growth, the client, you as a coach, you may find that there are different mentor coaches that kind of pop in and out, depending on where you are at too.
Yeah, and a quick story there as well. You and I both worked with a mentor coach who goes very deep. I mean, soul to the soul coaching, right? And I loved working with this coach. They're amazing. But I found that I had to dial it back and find a mentor coach who is more just super structured with the PCC markers from the ICF, and just like really back to like basics, just really basics. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm like super back to basics. And it's interesting because they're so different. These 2 mentor coaches are so different. And I love them both. And I'm sure I'll be working with both of them again, in the future at the same time. But yeah, going back to intuition, like trust your intuition. Like if someone's not resonating with you, like move on, move on.
Yeah, or it just could be the timing's not quite right for you.
Yeah, that's true.
You can always come back to that person later,
Yeah,
or a different one.
yeah. Yeah, but I do know some people who have only had one mentor coach, and it's a bit of, the horse with the blinders on, like they're only seeing that one perspective. And you've mentioned several times, like different mentor coaches, different perspectives, and you don't have to agree with everything. Not everything will resonate, but pick and choose, take what resonates, leave the rest, right? As one of our mentor coaches always says.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
And then one additional point
yeah,
is just simply more on the kind of one-on-one coaching side of things. A coach is a client, right?
mhm,
That depending on your issue, right, or the kind of issues you have, one coach may be able to get you to a certain point, and then you kind of almost outgrow this person, right? Because then you find the conversations, their level of coaching is just not breaking through, right? It's like not, whatever. And so that may mean that you want to switch to another mentor coach at that point, simply because, with all due respect to whoever it is, right, you might have actually reached a point where this person can't help you anymore.
mhm.
And that can apply to any other coaches and people you work with. It's just you need another person that has either different insight, different method, whatever, to break through what it is.
Yeah, I think that can apply to, sorry, interrupted you again. Were you done?
Oh, I was just going to say an example of that would be
Yeah, go.
traditional evidence-based coaching. They tend to be very mind and emotion kind of based. Often can take a client just this far. And if they don't resolve, then there has to be something else. But if you keep throwing CBT or whatever at them, it's just, you'll find it doesn't work. Right? And there's something else there. And so then you'll have to go looking for some other thing, some other method, some other perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Two things came up for me when you were talking about, maybe one mentor coach, you just reached the end of the road with that one. And I'm thinking, like, again, with the music, same thing. Like sometimes there's teachers who can only take you so far and you outgrow them, and that's okay. Um, and then
Absolutely.
and then the other thing that came up, I totally forgot. So maybe they'll come back to me, maybe not.
Oh, sorry
Oh,
about
well,
that.
yeah, no, it's okay. I interrupted you. It's my bad.
Well, hopefully I'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about um, one-on-one coaching for coaches, coaching in group setting, session reviews, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. So there's different types of coaching for coaches. Let's start with a coach working with another coach, like one-on-one. And we've talked about this a little bit already, but there are benefits and maybe some things that are not so great when working one-on-one. I know that working with one MC, like mentor coach, they will get to know you, your habits, your style, and you'll get to know them too. So that's quite a benefit. Um, and then, as they get to know you, they're building that trust and safety that we talked about earlier, which is really important. You want to come to a session to be as open and vulnerable as possible. And if you have that strong connection and bond with that one mentor coach, then that'll make the coaching that much better. Yeah, what else about working with a coach one-on-one?
Yeah, just to add on to what you said, once you build a rapport, feel good about being with this one coach, sometimes a single session is not enough. Right? You may need multiple sessions to unwind something that is blocking you in your coaching. So that may naturally mean that you need to see them 2, 3, 4, I don't know, 10 times maybe before you can get rid of this particular something going on inside you that is blocking you from your coaching. It might take a while.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Now, along the same lines of that, then that means they are able to target that particular issue. And if it's a big one for you, that's great. That someone can stay with you for a longer period of time to be able to identify this particular one thing that's the problem for you. And so that's a good thing about one-on-one versus, say, if you were doing this more in a group mentor coaching session, where the potential for not being able to focus on you and your issues, as arrogant as you may be, you're the only one there. You really are the only one there if you're one-on-one with somebody.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about group coaching in a minute, but that's a good point. You can get really, like you said, that targeted support working one-on-one with a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And coaching, it can be teaching or being coached. It can be a combination of both. I know the mentor I'm working with now, it is that combination that we mentioned at the top, coach supervision, if you want to call it that. It's working on skills, coaching skills, but also like what's going on in you as a person. Yeah, what else?
Well, if you're going for ICF credentialing, then they require it. So you
That's
have
true.
to get at least 3 out of that. And they recognize that it's useful for coaches to be coached and to have potentially also teaching moments too, where you might need to kind of learn about new things or why I think something is better, all that kind of thing.
Right, ICF being International Coach Federation, and they're changing everything like in a week. So, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know let's not go down that road. But yes, they do require you to work with a mentor coach to become certified. So that's important. So I'm going to the negative, and this is Sandy has issues with money, and she's been coached on this issue, and it has helped a lot. My beliefs around money have helped a lot, but the not so great thing about working with a mentor one-on-one is the cost. It can be pricey depending on who you work with, and groups might be a much more affordable way to have some coaching, some mentor coaching. If you aren't able to pay for those one-on-one sessions, they can get pricey, people.
Yeah, especially for the really experienced master coaches that are out there who are doing this stuff. But
Yeah, I
there
mean, it's
are,
worth it. The value is like off the charts, but is it in your budget? You know, it's something that needs to be considered. Yeah.
yep, absolutely. One other thing just popped up for me. One way that these one-on-one sessions can be done is through reviewing some of your recent session with the client. Yeah. So
Right. Yeah.
instead of just for passing a class, you can just bring up a recording, ask someone to take a look at it, and walk through it with you, commenting on where this could be better, this is good, this is not. You could have said this. That can be very helpful too.
It is very helpful. In the course I'm taking now, we do that in class, in the group class. Each week, 2 or 3 people bring a recording. And it is such great learning. I mean, it is, my mind is kind of blown. Just like you can listen, you can like maybe formulate your own response. And then the mentor coach, she offers her, maybe what she would say, what you could do better. It's such great learning. And yeah, I try to do that on my own with my own sessions, like, what could I do better? But like doing it with someone else, a fresh set of ears, is super important. And usually maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but these session reviews usually cost more than a regular session because it does take time for the mentor coach to go through them, to listen, to really be prepared for the session. Would you say that's true, that they cost more or no? No?
Well, not in the particular case of the mentor coach I'm working with,
Okay.
which is good because it does take time for them to go through it.
Yeah.
Although there is a really cool tool called Ray Notes that seems to accelerate that. So it isn't quite as bad as as it was in the past, where you actually had to play the whole thing through and be taking notes along the side.
Right. We'll put the Ray notes in the show notes for you
Yeah,
all.
very cool tool. I've seen it in action now 2-3 times now. It's just like, oh wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's a
Yeah.
transcription tool for coaches, like specifically for coaches. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and they have pre-programmed in there the ICF competencies, so they are
Which are
easily
all going to change.
selectable and all that stuff. Yeah, we'll see what happens in about a week. All right, so yeah, what else about one-on-one coaches? Anything else?
I don't know. I think we're good.
Okay, well then there's the group side of mentor coaching.
Yeah, could you maybe describe what group mentor coaching looks like? You mentioned it, alluded to it earlier, but what is group coaching when it comes to you being a coach, working with a mentor coach in a group setting?
Yeah, so instead of there just being you there would be more than one person, more than one coach there with a mentor coach facilitating. Typical format that it's all of them seem to run this way. You start, there's a little bit of Q&A on whatever's top of mind. You might share something, share some wins or whatever. And then usually what happens is somebody volunteers to be coached on. And occasionally, I have seen this, very rarely, but there is one case where I've seen it where actually someone brings an outside client in. So that takes the pressure off someone within the group to come raise their hand up to be coached. I've also seen the mentor coaches themselves volunteer to be coached too, which also heightens the level of nervousness.
That just sounds stressful, man.
Yeah, for us. But anyway, then I've seen two different things happen. One is one coach may coach the whole time, and then the mentor coach is kind of walking alongside them and giving them feedback and doing things. And then the other one is more of like a round robin where, okay, the person just gave the intro. Who wants to throw out some potential reflections and first questions? And then that happens. Everybody goes. Who wants to offer one? And then oftentimes they ask the client, "Oh, so which one resonated most with you?" And then they'll pick one, and then the thread goes from there. And then it keeps going and going and going until till the session finishes or time runs out or whatever. So they're a little bit fun to kind of go through, and you learn a lot by being able to see all the different permutations of what other people sense, and which ones actually seem to work and which one not.
Yeah, I like that round robin idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then at the end, you kind of wrap up and say, okay, what did everybody think? What did the client think about the experience? What did everybody learn? Talk about different points at which, oh, what if we had tried this or that? Sometimes the mentor coach will give comments on those. It's like, oh, what if we took this person down this direction or that direction? So you can kind of not only comment on how the session actually went, but also alternative directions and seeing how they went, it played out.
So it sounds like it's these group coaching sessions are more pure mentor coaching, like more on the skills of coaching and not so much on coaching the person, except for the person maybe being coached. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you said, that is, if you have an issue you want to bring up, you should hop in the driver's seat and ask to be coached and see if they can get somewhere. Often that often happens, actually.
But overall, it's more about coaching skills in these group sessions.
That's right, except for the coach who is the client. But as you alluded to earlier, it is likely a lot more expensive than an individual coaching session, one-on-one session.
The one-on-one is more expensive.
More expensive, yes.
Yeah.
And you often buy a package of, I don't know, 6 or whatever, or by month. There's usually 4 sessions in a month. People meet weekly. Yeah, and you go from there. You can decide to drop in and out, on demand. Drop in for this month, leave for the next month, go every other month, go every month for a while.
Yeah, get a flavor of various mentor coaches all over the place. I want to make one comment about the energy of a group when it comes to these group coaching scenarios. Going back to energy here, I'm all about energy today. I don't know what's going on. But sometimes that energy can be great. And I know you and I have both experienced that with some mentor coaches where everyone is just like connected, for lack of a better word, just connected and on the same page, and just like the energy is palpable and it's exciting and it works. And sometimes you're in a group coaching scenario where that energy is not there. That's not a bad thing. I suppose it depends. Well, maybe it doesn't depend on the type of coaching you're doing. Yeah, it probably doesn't depend on it, but it can be a little frustrating if you're coming from that that space of like feeling the love and feeling the support and the trust and the connection and the energy to something else, which is like not that. So I would invite people to be open to whatever, everything's not going to be perfect, peaches and cream, but you always learn something like that.
Yeah, maybe that kind of begs a quick discussion on how do you select a group mentor
Yeah.
coach session. Yeah, what do you think? What are things you look for when you pick one?
What are the things we look for? Um, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but finding someone you have chemistry with. I mean, our clients, they do a chemistry session, a discovery session to see if we can get along. Do the same when you're looking for a mentor coach. When I was looking for a coach myself, I went to the ICF website and I just set up a bunch of free sessions because why not? You learn about the coach. You also learn about how to hold the discovery call, chemistry session. I learned a lot doing that. I thought I don't even want to tell you like how many sessions I set up. It was kind of ridiculous, but it was such a great process for me to learn what that process was like for my clients and to find a coach to work with. Yeah, there's going to be different styles, as we mentioned earlier. You might resonate with one, you might not resonate with the other. I want to mention that culture background might come into play here. You might not connect with someone from a different country. Maybe you do, who knows? But if that's important to you, it might be a consideration. What else? How do you find a coach, Dave?
Yeah, actually, when I asked the question, I was curious more about group mentor coaching, but
Oh,
this is actually really important. So we're hopping ahead a little
I
bit, I
skipped
think.
ahead. Yeah.
So that was my fault, but we were kind of talking about it in the mentor coaching,
Yeah,
group
that's
mentor
okay.
coaching. Well, first, I guess to select a mentor coach, you gotta don't settle on one, right? Get a referral from somebody if you can, and then that'll narrow down the group. Then go and make the calls. Chemistry calls are definitely, usually not paid. I would run from somebody who makes you pay for a chemistry session. I haven't seen that happen, but it can happen in other kind of contexts for sure. But make sure you resonate with them, and then try them out. You have to pay for a session or two to see if that chemistry session really kind of held through the first real session. Sometimes we meet them, like you said, in a class. We can get our kind of chemistry issues worked out before we even have to do that. But yeah, sometimes you shop around is I think the big one.
Shop around.
That's
Yeah,
right.
and I'm thinking like, when you go get your hair cut, let's stick with me here. you go,
You have
you go
beautiful
get your
hair
hair
today.
cut and the stylist takes off 4 inches instead of 1, you're probably not going to go back to that stylist. So shop around, find someone who listens to you, who you resonate with, who's not going to chop off 4 inches of your hair. Talking about coaching here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd actually say the same thing about groups too. Because following on what you were saying before, which is not only resonating with the MC, the mentor coach, but also with the people in it. Yeah, I've found the energy of certain groups to be kind of, not that great or not that exciting, right? And I know I would be bored, right? It's like, do you feel like you would want to come back next week to this group and hang out with them for usually it's an hour and a half and go through the things that they go through?
Yeah.
Yes or no, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, I've also sat in ones where there was like a person who just didn't connect with the rest of the people.
Yeah.
And that can, depending on the skill of the MC, then if they don't manage it well, then that can also, well, at least destroy that one experience of that session. But yeah, but if that person keeps coming back no matter what,
A disaster, right?
yeah, it could be a disaster if the
Yeah.
mentor coach doesn't do something about it, which they probably will actually. And they're usually pretty self-aware about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I want to talk about
Go ahead.
some barriers
Yes.
to getting help from another coach. Like if you, I don't know, what could get in your way from signing up to work with a coach if you're a coach? What comes forward for you?
Well, sometimes it's just they're not ready to work on their own issues
That's
or don't want to. Yeah.
that's a huge barrier. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
could be the arrogance thing I talk about, right? It's like,
Mhm.
there ain't nothing wrong with me. What are you talking about? It's you. It's the coaching. It's not me. I'm perfect. Which maybe this is another one, which is a little bit about the ego too, which could be part of that. But a readiness to work on your stuff could also mean like it's something you experienced in the past may have been so intense, right, that you just can't face it just yet. And unfortunately, what coaching does for most people, most coaches, is that it kind of starts peeling away the onion really quick when you see the reflection of your own issues sitting in your clients,
Right.
and then you're like, "Oh man, that's me. Oh,
No,
I want to
true.
run right now." And there's 25 minutes left. Yeah. So, yeah, those are definitely some. We've talked about cost, right? It's like,
Yeah, I was going to mention cost. Like if it's not in your budget to have a coach, I mean, that's tough. That's tough. But again, group coaching is usually more affordable, less expensive. But yeah, cost can be a factor. I mean, there's one mentor coach I would work with every week if I had the money, if I had the income, I would do that. I don't, so I don't. And it is what it is.
yeah, but it's so worth that money, isn't it?
Oh, you know what? It is. It so is. It's totally, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
Time could be one. You could have a busy
It's
family
true.
life, work life. This coaching might be a second thing for you. So if you have an 8-hour a day job, where do you find time to take an hour and a half or hour or whatever to go and get coached yourself?
Right.
Here, this is one that came up also that seemed to be there, which is there would seem to be in some people after they took the course that we took, that's all they need to know. What? You're saying I need to actually take that further and spend more money? I didn't
Wait,
become the master at the end of this class?
well, you mentioned this earlier. Were there actually people who thought that, do you think?
Well, I think it's bound with the cost thing, partially. Right?
Yeah,
I just spent a bundle of money in this class.
that
Shouldn't
should
you
be
have?
done.
I should be done. It was so much money that how could it not be done? Almost like that. And that's justified in a lot of ways too. Unfortunately, the reality of coaching is that it doesn't seem to end at all,
Yeah, no
ever.
kidding, Dave. Me who has taken every course from here to New York and back. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lifelong endeavor, isn't it?
yeah. Sure seems like it.
Yeah, well, when you think about like doctors, therapists, I mean, there's some continuing education that they have to go through. Of course, if you're a coach and you're not certified, it's like, why bother? Why bother? But if you are with a certified, accredited, like organization like the International Coach Federation or National Board for Health and Wellness Coaches, yeah, you're required to do that continuing ed, and work with a mentor coach. Yeah. Yeah, and I want to mention a barrier that I see in my session reviews when they're just not ready. And you mentioned this before, like if people are not ready to hear feedback, if they don't have the space to grow, that can be a real barrier to wanting to find a coach to work with for yourself.
Yeah, sometimes it's really tough to hear that there could be something wrong with you, that you're not doing it right. Holy smokes, what?
Oh, yeah. Well, is there anything else we missed in terms of coaches need a coach? I won't sing again. Is there anything we missed?
It's very
We
lovely.
covered a lot here. We were talking for a long time.
No, we've done a lot already.
Yeah.
I guess we'll leave some resources in the show notes so you can kind of find Ray notes and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, when it comes to finding a coach, we can, there are a couple ways to do that, right? Go to ICF website and other things.
Yeah, we'll leave,
as well as our own information.
Yeah, we'll leave all that stuff in the show notes. And yeah, our own information. Where can people find you, David Shen?
Yeah, coachdshen.com. That's where you'll find me. Send me a message. Happy to talk to you. Where can people find you, Sandy?
swansoncoaching.com. Send me a message. I'm also happy to talk to you. All right, awesome. Thanks, Dave. Good to see you.
Thanks, Sandy.
Yep, see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.